I'd like to give a very warm welcome to everybody. My name is Kirsten Necker, and I'm Share Screen Africa's Southern African coordinator. Today, I'm your host for Share Screen Africa's eighth talk in the series, the Maasai Mara, Conservation Communities and Cattle. Just to let you know that there won't be a talk, Maasai Mara talk next week, but the following week on November the 14th, there will be a talk, we're hoping, by Francis Nkatoy, who will speak about his experience in the Mara. I'd like to extend a big hello to our primary audience, the Kenyan Wildlife, the Kenyan Tourism College and Peterson, and also to our online audience. You're welcome to put in the chat where you're from. That would be good to see. And a special thanks to our speaker, Michael Kaelo. Sorry, Michael. And also to James, his colleague, and James will come in on the discussion and the question and answer part of our talk today. So welcome to both of you. Right, so I'm going to kick off with introducing James and Michael. Right, let me just see if I can get the slide going. So Michael Kaelo was born and raised in the Maasai Mara, Narok County, Kenya. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in environment and community development from Kenyatta University and enrolled for an MA in environmental planning and management at the University of Nairobi. Michael joined Kenyan Wildlife Trust's flagship projects, the Mara Lion and Mara Cheetah projects, in 2014. And started working as Chief Community Officer until 2018, when the two projects merged to form what is now the Mara Predator Conservation Program, where his job title changed to Community and Public Relations Manager. And in 2022, he was promoted to become the Mara Predator Conservation Program Manager. Well done, Michael. Michael's passion is working with people to create an enabling environment for wildlife to coexist with livestock and managing the interaction to avoid conflicts. His research interests are in understanding the drivers of change in a mixed-use environment to inform managers on ways to mitigate negative interactions that lead to conflicts. He is also interested in understanding community dynamics that affect the future of conservation in private or communal lands set aside for conservation. Right, next is James. Yep. And James Kathane was born and raised in Narok County in the Maasai Mara region as well. He holds a bachelor's degree in disaster management with a specialization in conflict resolution and humanitarian assistance, and is currently pursuing a master's degree in project management and planning at Mount Kenya University. In 2021, James became part of the Mara Predator Conservation Program team, initially serving as a wild dogs field assistant. His dedication and contributions led to his recent promotion, elevating him to the position of Community Liaison Officer of August this year. Congratulations, James. Drawing upon his expertise in conflict resolution, James is deeply committed to collaborating with communities to nurture a sense of peaceful coexistence amongst people, wildlife, and livestock. He strives to cultivate an environment where all parties can coexist with reduced apprehension towards one another. His passion lies in transforming communities' perspectives and fostering positive attitudes towards wildlife. And with that, I wish to hand over to Michael. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And I'm happy to be part of today's talk. All right. So all the viewers, I just want to welcome you to today's talk. And I've already been introduced, and I'm happy to be able to prepare a small talk for each and every one of us, just to talk about the work that we are doing in the Mara and across Kenya as Kenya Wildlife Trust. Now, I know this is not the first talk that we are giving as Kenya Wildlife Trust. We've already done a talk on lion monitoring and also one on community engagement in conservation. And we are really happy to be part of this series of talks, just to be able to share the wisdom and knowledge that we've gotten over time with all of you. So my talk today will focus really around the work that Kenya Wildlife Trust is doing, and our motto goes, driven by science and focused on people. We are really trying to use science to be able to make a difference in the world, and starting from here in Kenya. So I know some of you are wondering, what Kenya Wildlife Trust is, and maybe that would be a good place to set us off in this presentation. So we are dedicated to three of Kenya's most important ecosystems. That is the Greater Mara ecosystem, the Samburu Laikipia ecosystem, and also the Amboseli Savo ecosystem. So Kenya Wildlife Trust, as a registered trust in Kenya, is really focused on supporting programs that are in these three core ecosystems. So we protect vulnerable predator populations. So later on, I'll talk to you about the 3 Ps, and it basically focuses on communities, trying to empower them to do an education for stakeholders who are responsible for making decisions in these ecosystems. And also our platform, being a national platform, give us an opportunity to be able to influence policy and also decision makers to be able to protect these predators and work with communities. So our work is based on these 3 key pillars. That's the 3 Ps, that is predators, people, and partnerships. Now, I'll briefly talk about the 3 Ps and how all these link to each other. So if I start with the first P, we are working on partnerships. So to be able to carry out effective conservation, you cannot do it alone. We cannot do it as Kenya Wildlife Trust alone. We need partners. So we are partnering with various organizations, both in the Mara ecosystem and also in these other 2 ecosystems that I mentioned. And one of our focus in there is having what we call the One Mara Research Hub. So our initiative led to formation of the One Mara Research Hub, where we are trying to tell other researchers that we need a common voice through the One Mara Research Hub. So we need to be able to set priorities for research. What are the pressing problems? And all this can be found in one area. So if people, let's say, carry out research in the Mara ecosystem, we should all have this knowledge synchronized in one place. And that is why the formation of the One Mara Research Hub was a necessity. So we work with Conservancies, we work with MMWCA, we work with all other stakeholders in the Mara, including the communities. And then if I go to the second P, that is the livelihoods, and which actually is the focus of today's talk, we are looking at being able to work with communities, because communities are key drivers of change in these ecosystems. So if you try to work in isolation, you will not make good progress. So we try to support their livelihoods, and that is why we initiated this program that I'll talk about, which is called the Ufugaji Hifadhi Program. And this is basically to support livelihoods, not only in the Mara, but across the three areas. So we are not working alone. We are working together with Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association, because it has a national platform and will be able to, boost the efforts that we are able to make in the Mara to other areas where conservancies are. So for people, we are looking at 2 programs. That is the livelihood program, which I'll talk more about in details. And also we have a conservation leadership program where we support college students and also university students through bursaries to be able to pursue careers that are geared towards conservation. If I go to the last P, that is the predators, that is, we are looking at supporting predators across these ecosystems And specifically in the Mara, that is why Kenya Wildlife Trust initiated the Mara Predator Conservation Program. So that is how all these three tie in. Now, we, in the Mara specifically, we work in both inside the conservancies to carry out predator monitoring and also outside. Now, in this slide, it kind of ties in everything that we are doing to predators, to tourism, and also to the livestock cycle that we have in the Mara. So if you look at it, if we start, let's say, from the inside of the conservancies, so we believe that the conservancies are critical conservation areas that need to be protected because they are grass banks for our livestock. So in the past, the Maasai used to have what they call olokeri. That is an area which would remain untouched because if there are droughts, then your livestock would go there. So the present day olokeri is what we now have as the conservancies. So with planned grazing, that could allow for survival of wildlife and livestock. So we see conservancies not only as a source of tourism or a source of preserving native plants, but also as grass banks. And if you look within the conservancies, there are low number of livestock predation because, people are alert more when they go to these areas. Plus, it tends to happen only during the day in most of the times. So that is how we work within the conservancy. So we have a monitoring program, which in the previous talks, you've been told how we monitor the lions, cheetahs within the conservancies. And so if I dwell more on the outside of the conservancies, this is an area which is characterized by intensive grazing because some people are not very living closer to conservancies, or they live in conservancies where they do not allow grazing within the conservancies. So this is an area that's characterized by intensive grazing. And so we work with the conservation agents. So we have 20 conservation agents working in different clusters. And later on, I'll talk more about what these conservation agents are doing. More importantly to mention at this stage is that these conservation agents are from the community. They are community appointed, but they are employed by our organization. So primarily, their focus is on livestock management, being able to advise communities on how to have healthy livestock, but also being able to carry out education on things like diseases, livestock diseases, and so forth. Now, in the same line, we have a team of 20 lion ambassadors who are also working mostly to try and understand conflict and be able to mitigate conflict from happening. So that forms a team of 40 people who are dedicated to work within the Mara ecosystem to focus on livelihood and also to focus on preventing human-wildlife conflict. Now, for the agents and mostly their work also revolves around being able to educate people on livestock products, carbon, and also provide knowledge on veterinary services. So we have come up with flyers which they help to distribute to farmers to be able to identify common diseases and also to be able to diagnose them and link them with the right vets. Because one of the problems we've also noticed is that people are using unregistered vets, which end up bringing issues of antibiotic resistance for livestock. I'll talk to you more about what we are doing in each of these areas. But onto the topic of the day, which is the Ufugaji Hifadhi program. And it is a new initiative for building improved and sustainable livelihood for smallholder livestock farmers in Kenyan conservancies. So the whole idea is to try and breed a program that works starting from the Mara. So the Mara is where we are piloting the program. And then we will now, if it becomes a success, which we have already seen some good success, it can then be replicated in other areas. So the whole idea is focused on, came about during the COVID-19 pandemic, which, we all know what happened. Markets were closed. People didn't have access to livestock trading facilities. And so we, as a program, sat down and thought, how can we be able to bridge this gap? How can we be able to have an opportunity to create change using this platform? So we sat down and came up with a theory of change, which, it's detailed. I know there's a lot of words here, but just briefly to talk us through these changes that we are seeing. So by changes, I mean land degradation, poor livestock management, competing land uses, and so forth. Not actually to forget gender inequality and also a lot of youth and empowerment. All these are driven by historical factors, which, later on you'll be able to interact with the slides and read through the theory of change. But basically, the idea is to try and have some impact through working with youth groups, women groups, to be able to overcome these historical setbacks that have put them at a disadvantage. So we have things like inadequate animal husbandry, which is driven by traditional practices for livestock rearing. And for this, we are trying to have, the direct influence. We have the opportunities that are presented now in terms of even the UN Decade of Restoration. And all this is anchored at achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you interact later on with the slide, you'll understand where we come from, what we are doing to try and get to the change that we want to see. But basically, there are four key areas that I'm going to talk about that we are trying to make impact. So the first one is on the market access and financial stability. Now, when COVID came and the markets were closed, we realized that because Maasais are predominantly pastoralist and their source of livelihood is mostly livestock. Now, if you close markets and people need school fees, people need to eat, people need to survive. So then you have basically maimed a community. So we thought, okay, we need to be able to make people have a shift in their thinking on how to utilize livestock. So some of the things that we want to see is we want to see a change in linking buyers to livestock. And I'll talk to you later on about the platform that we have started. And also we want to see improved value for livestock, okay? Because what tends to happen there is we have a lot of middlemen who are benefiting from livestock. So you would keep your livestock, you would have to look for medicine and all that. But then by the time you come and sell, you only get a fraction of that pay. So those are some of the things we want to do. The second thing I'll talk to you about is the improved livestock management. Now, the whole aspect of livestock is still very traditional in the Mara ecosystem. If you ask people how many times they do livestock vaccination, probably there isn't a very well coordinated vaccination in place. Livestock diseases, incidents, and deaths, improved access to inputs. So probably a lot of them would just graze the livestock. And if they're lucky and they have a salt lick close by, then that's a good thing. But if not, then some people do not really know some of the inputs that need to be, included in the livestock market. So those are some of the things that we are trying to do, and also to improve livestock husbandry. The third thing is on gender equality. So for gender equality, for a long time, and again, this is a historical issue, women have been disenfranchised. One, because they do not own land, and they also do not own the big stock. And by the big stock, I mean cows. So they tend to only probably own a few sheep. And even when that cow is sold, probably just a fraction of the money goes to them. So how can we be able to empower women and youth to be able to benefit from this program? So some of the other things that we want to see is the change in the unit of production for women. And I'll talk to you about the registered groups that we are working with to try and improve this equality. And the final aspect is on reduced environmental degradation and human-animal conflict. So in the Mara, we have a lot of human-wildlife conflicts. I bet even this morning, there are some people who have lost livestock. And we are trying to look through ways in which we can be able to work with communities to reduce this. And that's where I mentioned earlier on about the lion ambassadors and the field agents. That's the work that they are doing. So we want to be able to reduce the number of deaths through human-wildlife conflict, both for livestock and also for people, because it's also something that's happening. And then we also want to be able to change attitudes towards conservation through protection of natural ecosystems. So all these are included in the talk that we are going to talk about. But also key is the restoration of landscapes. So we did a study just to look at what parts of the Mara are degraded. And we found out that, a vast majority of the areas are undergoing some level of degradation. We have areas that are highly degraded and areas that have medium degradation happening. And we all know that grass and healthy ecosystem are what drive conservation. They are what drives tourism. They are what drives the livestock economy. So we are also working towards looking for ways to reduce environmental degradation and human-wildlife conflict. Now, if I delve into each of these, so for the livestock health, there's various programs that we have initiated. So first and foremost, we have been training communities on livestock health and husbandry through workshops. So we are working with a well-known veterinarian in the Mara ecosystem who's had years of practice and understand livestock diseases. The whole aspect of why we are looking at livestock health is we are looking at the end, where that is improving incomes for households. Now, the first thing we did was we asked ourselves about livestock vaccination. How does that happen and how often? And we realized that it's not coordinated. So you could be vaccinating your livestock, but your neighbor is not. And that presents a challenge because I think they say about 70% of the herds must be able to be vaccinated for that disease to be effectively eliminated in an ecosystem. So if you look at the way vaccination has been done, it's been done piecemeal. And so we've been able now to develop a livestock vaccination strategy that will focus on these areas that we are working on. And we are working with partners to try and be able to coordinate and fundraise to be able to do coordinated livestock vaccination. The mainstay for this vaccination is to be able to have more healthy livestock, more productive livestock. And hopefully by that, we will be able to see a reduction in the livestock numbers. We realize that people keep a lot of cows because there's a risk, and the risk is diseases. So that, if you have, say, 100 cows, you are trying to mitigate against a few of them dying. And also you are looking at low production in terms of milk and meat. But with proper vaccination and with proper husbandry, you will be able to improve the production even for the fewer numbers. So at the end of the day, you will not see the need to keep so many cows because the few that you can manage are very productive. So that's why we need a coordinated health strategy for the livestock in the Mara. Now, the other thing that we are doing is working on a digital platform. So if we go back to the times of COVID, where the markets were closed, there was the livestock economy almost collapsed in the Mara, and almost did the livelihoods for people. A lot of the people were relying on food aid, despite having their livestock in the area. So to address this, we thought of coming up with a digital platform that's able to facilitate trading of livestock between people in the Mara and everyone else in the country. So we have been working on a platform where you're able to post a picture for your cow, be able to negotiate with a farmer in, let's say, Dagoretti Corner, and you can be able to sell your cows. We are still hopeful that we'll be able to launch this. And the whole idea is to try and have fair trade in livestock production, so that you're not spending so much time producing your livestock only to come and get minimum results. The other thing about the digital platform is we are also able to link you, the farmer, with livestock service providers. So these are people like vets. So in the app, you're able to connect with a vet who's very closer to you. You're also able to connect with livestock transporters. So let's say you want to transport your cows to Dagoretti Market, you can use the app to be able to identify the service provider. You are also able to connect with the livestock feed providers and also agrovets. So all this will be input in that app. And this will really begin to change the way things are working, because if you're able to look at that app and be able to link yourself with all these people, at least we are hoping that that will change the landscape. The other thing that I almost forgot to mention is that disease diagnosis is also part of the application. So if, let's say, you are looking at your cow and you're not sure what is ailing the cow, you're able to send kind of a code, and it would prompt you with the different signs and symptoms. So it would, for instance, ask you, is the coat of the cow raised? Does the cow have high temperatures? Is there nasal discharge, and so forth? And it would narrow down to symptoms for one disease. And after that, you're able to connect with a vet directly to be able to support you in terms of treating that animal. The other thing is on registered groups. Now, to be able to make change, you have to have a sample that you are working with. So we've identified youth and women groups that are registered in the Mara ecosystem. And with these groups, we have started doing some work. We have started training them on livestock husbandry. We're also training them on financial literacy, because at the end of the day, we want them to be able to access financial support from banks and other financial providers to be able to support what they are doing. So you find that there are some groups which are basically keeping livestock. They have chamas, where every month they buy, some cows, they buy some shorts. And so we need to be able to empower these groups to be able to transition from the livestock economy to alternative investment options. So that's why we are really trying to work with these groups to make sure that they become change makers. I think this would be the last aspect that I'm going to talk about, and that is the whole aspect of restoration. Now, for a long time, nobody has been talking about grass. Nobody has been talking about the health of the ecosystem. And this is actually the underlying factor. If you look at the livestock, they survive on land. You look at wildlife, be it herbivores, they are reliant on grass. Now, in the Mara, there's a lot of intensive grazing from shots especially. And, people keep a lot of shots because in Maasai, they call them petty cash. You can easily, if you have a problem, you can easily take one goat to the market and you'll have solved the problem. They also are kept, to be able to provide food. You take a goat to the market, and later on you come with food, household food. So, but what we are not looking at is what impact are these sheep and goat having on the ecosystem? Do we know the carrying capacity? So that necessitated us to work on restoration programs to try and bring back the grass species that are lost. We also try and work on the, restoring bare lands. So to do that, we are starting to work with partners who are able to carry out things like rotational grazing. And for this, we are using mobile bombers to make sure that we put these bombers in strategic locations which have been degraded, and over time, the hooves, the dung, and the urine will be able to rejuvenate the land. Sorry. So those are some of the things that we are doing under the Ufugaji Hifadhi program. And we hope that all this tie in together to have an ecosystem that's healthy, communities that are thriving, and livelihoods that's well supported. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. We have our contacts if you want to learn more. And also we have a website where all these things are available. So, and without further ado, I now want to just pass this back to Kirsten. And if there are any questions, and we are happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was a fantastic talk, very informative and enlightening to me, definitely. I've got a couple of questions to ask you before I open the floor to everybody else. I wanted to ask you, first of all, and I apologize if I missed it, what is the meaning of your of the term Ufugaji Hifadhi, the literal translation?
Well, so Ufugaji Hifadhi is literally would mean Ufugaji is the livestock keeping, yeah. Hifadhi is tolerant to the environment. Like, you're keeping livestock, yes, but you're also thinking about being able to preserve other resources.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you another question, which is where the kind of the selling of cattle versus holding onto them for a sign of wealth or a status. Is it something that people really want to hold onto their livestock, even to the detriment of, needing the money?
Well, there is the economy is changing now. And that obviously makes people make decisions that they would rather not. So we still have people who have other sources of income, and so they don't really bother with livestock, selling them. And that is a big challenge. But a majority of the people now are keeping livestock to support their livelihoods. So yes, if you look at the very wealthy people who have a couple of hundreds or thousands of cows, the portion which they sell is quite insignificant compared to the numbers that they own. And there's still, yes, some level of prestige in having more cows than not.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. So I'd like to open the floor to anybody else that would like to ask a question. Do we have any questions in the audience? I'm not seeing any more hands up. Maybe I'll ask one more question, Michael, while we see if anybody else comes forward. Oh, wait a bit. Is it Jeff or Nudge Pete? Sorry if I'm just mispronouncing your name, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm Jeff in Japit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, I have a question regarding the spread of diseases, the zoonotic diseases. How effective is the app in responding on the zoonotic diseases that is being used by the Mara predators? That people can be easily reached. That if somebody has got a ill animal, the app can respond and the doctor can reach there.
So, Michael, if I can respond to that question on, how the application works on, to make sure that at the end of the day, you maybe got something, correct to that illness of the livestock is that the application is built in a way that, through elimination on, signs of the livestock that will actually lead you to probably the illness that the cow has. Just um, standing just in close proximity to your livestock, maybe the application asks you like whether the cow has raised air cords, does it have lymph nodes, eliminating those signs one by one, then actually the app will actually give you almost close to the illness of the livestock. And if at the end of the day that won't be correct, then it will connect to you to the next available vet around the area for any assistance.
Okay, super, James. James, I'd like to just ask whether you had anything else to add to what Michael has previously said.
I've nothing to add on. Michael has said pretty much about what we are doing.
Okay, super. Any more questions before I ask another one? Jeff, I see you're still unmuted. Do you have another question? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, Michael and James, with another question, which is just, is there a difference according to regions in the Mara where people have more livestock relative to shoats? And shoats is a term that I've just recently learned last week. I don't think we have the same term in South Africa, so it was a big eye opener for me. So are there places that there's more cattle versus shoats than in other areas?
Yes. Yes, the geography of livestock spread is interesting, and it's linked to various either ecological factors or also the different management regimes that are being practiced. So if you look at areas that are very close to the national reserve and some other conservancies, you'd realize that people keep a lot of cows because there's an availability of areas to graze, whether legally or illegally. And so people have a lot of cows. In areas where there are largely plains, yeah, with some shrubs, in those areas you'd find a lot of more shoats than cows. And then it also again is linked to areas to the land tenure system. So in areas where we have significant land subdivision taking place and land parcels are few, you'd find people have few cows and probably more sheep and goats.
Mm-hmm.
So, because of, the grazing requirements for cows and sheep. So in areas, again, closer to the conservancies and the reserve, you'd find fewer sheep and goats because, they are not allowed into the conservancy, even when there's like a planned grazing or controlled grazing that happens in the conservancies. They only tend, in most conservancies at least, they only tend to allow cows. So all these factors are critical to understanding areas that have more sheep and goats and areas that have more cows.
Okay, super. Very interesting. James, would you like to add anything to that?
Sorry, I lost connection and I never got that question.
Okay,
Maybe.
no problem. The question, James, was just around whether in some regions or some, if there's a pattern in where there is more livestock kept versus goats and sheep. So that was what Michael was answering. Yeah, it's a bit difficult for you to know what he said, but if there is anything you would like to complement that with.
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so I haven't seen any more questions, and I just would like to really thank Michael and James enormously for your presentation this morning and for the discussion. I found it very, very interesting, and yeah, the classroom with Peterson, I really hope that they will interact with you following on from this from the recording. So, oh, wait a minute, we have got another question. Lucy, you're welcome to ask your question.
Yes, it was in, actually, I wrote it in the chat. It was just to ask about what the main elephant conflict problems are and your thoughts on solutions. They're not exactly predators, but there are many elephants in some regions in growing numbers. So what are the people's feelings about those and their solutions? Thank you.
All right, so I'll attempt to answer because we still also in the same ecosystem, we have elephants and we, occasionally have conflicts. So if you look at the primary drivers of elephant conflicts, it's usually on the kind of livelihood activities that's being implemented in that area. So if you go to areas around Transmara, which have some level of farming going on, the conflict is usually around crop raiding, where elephants would go and raid farms and eat farm produce. There are also some level of conflicts with pastoralists where elephants either attack livestock because of competition for water, or sometimes livestock, if they just infringe into areas where elephants are, some conflicts can also happen. There are also conflicts as a result of elephants killing people, either because they are at the wrong place at the wrong time. Say at night, someone is drunk and is walking and they get trampled by an elephant, or even sometimes they're just looking after livestock and they encounter some rogue elephant and they then either kill livestock or kill people. So those are kind of the drivers of the conflicts, and it's basically over either competition for resources or also, like I said, when they're out there grazing and there's that encounter. And some of the things that people have done, especially for the farming communities, even the Maasai's, there are some areas where there's some level of agriculture being practiced. And people have adopted things like, some either lighting of fires around the farms. There's things like beehives, adoption of beehives around the plots of land where farming is happening. There's also chili fences in some areas that are being put up just to try and scare or basically dissuade these elephants from coming into those areas. And some even use noise. They have some drums and things like that just to chase away the elephants. And so all these actually are just ways to try and make sure that people can live side by side with elephants.
Thank you. And so for the Maasai pastoralists, the issue is not so great, or is it getting greater?
Yes, I wouldn't dismiss. Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking more for pastoralists.
Yes, I wouldn't dismiss it at all, because I mean, over the years we've seen, you know, even just this year we've seen some level of conflicts that are happening, and this is especially over fences, because in some areas people are fencing their lands, and elephants sometimes, because they know historically those are their corridors, they would, you know, come and pass there, and some people would spear them and things like that. And so there's also that perspective of, if it's not attacking livestock, which is not very common, it's also destroying fences, which people have put up, and some people may be angry and retaliate.
Thank you. Are there more? Sorry, just lastly, are there more pastoralists putting up fences, or are these people who are wanting to grow crops?
Well, that's a good question. The whole debate of fences is actually interesting, because now as we speak, we are seeing like a level of decline in the number of fences, and this is because of the maintenance cost. There are, let's say, in the last 10 or so years, you know, a very big increase in the number of fences. And basically, if you ask people why they are fencing, it's really to protect their grass from wild herbivores. So that's the reason some people are putting up fences, to make sure that they have grass banks for the bad seasons.
Thank you. Interesting.
Thanks, Lucy, for your questions. Anybody else before we close off? Okay, I think we're going to complete it there. Michael and James, thank you so much. Really wonderful. And I would like to just remind everybody that there will be one more talk on the 14th of November with Francis Nkatoi. And we would welcome you to join us again then. Thank you very much, audience, and have a great day.